A single shaft of pale light cut through the silence of the chamber, landing on Private Mara Emery's uniform. She stood rigid, back straight, hands clasped behind her. Across from her, Commander Vexer waited with patient stillness. His tall frame filled the end of the room, and his dark, multifaceted eyes reflected her own heartbeat. In the hush, Mara felt every breath echo in her chest. She remembered stepping onto the Thanor flagship only hours before. A routine peace mission, she had thought. Now she realized how little she understood. The walls around her were smooth and white, making the space feel emptier than an open field. There were no chairs, no visible doors, and no sounds beyond her own shifting boots. The air smelled faintly of ozone, like after a storm on Earth. Mara's training kicked in. Stand firm, stay calm. Yet her mind raced. She recalled her mother's voice on the morning she left Earth. Be brave, but remember who you are. She breathed in, pulling that memory close. She was a soldier, yes, but also a daughter, a friend, a human who trusted in kindness. Those parts of herself gave her strength. Commander Vexer raised an antenna slowly, a gesture Mara was sure held meaning. In Thanori society, then his voice came quiet, precise, yet powerful. Tell me, human, do you have a mate? The words sounded simple, but the way he asked made Mara's world tilt. A mate she knew meant more than a companion. With this question, he reached into her humanity. She swallowed. I have a sister, she began, choosing truth. She is my closest friend. But I have no mate. The boy felt small in the vast room. She watched as Vexer's antennae twitched, his guards holding perfect stillness behind him. She could feel their eyes on her back. But she said what she felt. I care for her more than anyone. Vexer stepped closer, each movement measured. Mara forced her gaze to meet his. She saw no anger there, only curiosity. In that moment she understood that this was not a threat, it was a bridge. He sought connection, not conflict. A shiver ran through her, part fear and part hope. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then Vexer's voice came softer, almost gentle. Non-Thanos Prime, mates are bound for life. He held up a slender hand, and a simple hologram appeared between them. Pair of light crystals linked by glowing strands. They share thought, memory, purpose. The image pulsed like a heartbeat. Mara watched, mesmerized. She felt her own. Heart speed faster. She thought of Earth weddings she had seen in Hollowitz colors, music, laughter. She had always loved how people celebrated love and loyalty. Now she realized that even among distant stars, those bonds mattered. She cleared her throat. Humans choose mates too, she said. We promise to stand by each other in joy and in hardship. The silence returned, but it no longer felt empty. It held promise. In that moment, Mara felt something shift deep inside her, a spark of understanding that crossed the silent gulf between human and Thanor. Commander Vexer lowered the hologram. His antennae settled, and for the first time Mara sensed warmth in his posture. He inclined his head. Then you understand why I asked. His words felt like an invitation more than an interrogation. Mara nodded, uncertain but eager. She realized that this simple answer would shape everything to come. She stood taller, feeling her fear transform into resolve. This chamber, once a prison of silence, now felt like the beginning of a journey. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she would face it not as a solitary soldier, but as a human reaching across stars to forge a bond. And in that choice, Mara Emery found a flicker of courage that even the brightest Thanori light could not outshine. Mara sat across a low, polished table in a softly lit alcove just outside the interrogation chamber. Her senses hummed with tension as she studied the smooth surface that reflected her anxious face. Commander Vexer stood nearby, arms folded. Respectfully behind his back, alien guards had withdrawn, leaving just the two of them in this neutral space. It felt warmer here, less sterile, but the questions still hung heavy between them. Vexer spoke first. Human custom for mates is different, he said, his voice calm. He tapped a slender finger on the table, and a small hologram flickered to life, two creatures joined by a ring of light. Mara recognized the shape, a human wedding band. She felt a flutter in her chest, memories of her sister's ceremony on Earth, of music, of promises spoken under open skies. Mara took a breath. She chose her words carefully. On Earth, we marry for love, she began. A mate is someone you choose to share your life with. You stand by them when things are good and when things are hard. She held Vexor's dark gaze. A promise of loyalty, of care, and of family. Her heart thumped. She rarely spoke of these things in official settings. Yet here, among alien ears, her words felt sacred. Vexor's antennae twitched thoughtfully. He gestured, and another hologram appeared. Two Thenori warriors clasping light crystals at their foreheads. We bind mates at birth, he explained. It is decided by the council. They share memory and mind. His tone suggested pride and comfort in the ritual. There is no choice. To refuse is dishonor. Mara's brow furrowed, blinked, trying to understand. No choice, she echoed softly. That means mates could be strangers to each other. She pictured two beings forced into a lifelong connection without caring for each other. Her chest tightened. Vexor lowered his head. Yes, but our unity is strong. We trust the council's wisdom. He paused, as if weighing whether to share. More than, he said quietly, some fear that bonds chosen, not granted, could weaken our honor. Mara leaned forward. Honor grows from respect, she said gently. We trust people to choose who they love. The trust builds stronger bonds, because it comes from the heart. She smiled slightly, remembering her sister's bright eyes as she said her vows. Love is not predictable, but it is real. Vexor's eyes glinted. Your customs confuse me, he admitted. How do you ensure loyalty when mates might end paths at any time? His question was not hostile, just curious. Oh? Mara felt a surge of compassion for this commander who carried his people's traditions so deeply. True loyalty doesn't come from laws. She answered, it comes from choice. When you choose someone, you value them. You fight for them. You forgive. Them, she placed her hand over her heart. That choice makes us stronger. Vexor regarded her in silence. The alcove was quiet except for the hum of the ship's systems. Then he nodded slowly. Perhaps there is wisdom in your ways, he said. Perhaps choice and honor can coexist. His admission felt like a small victory. Mara felt relief blossom inside her. She had bridged a gap she never thought possible. I believe so, she said softly. I believe we can learn from each other. For the first time, Vexor offered. A gesture of friendship, he extended one hand forward, palm up. Mara hesitated, then placed her own hand above his. The space between them glowed with faint light, as if reacting to their contact. A gentle warmth spread through Mara's fingertips. They held that moment, human and Thenor, united by simple trust. In her mind, Mara replayed the words she had spoken. Loyalty from choice, strength from love. She realized that, through this exchange, she was no longer alone in these alien halls. She had an ally in Commander Vexor, partner in understanding. When they finally withdrew their hands, Mara felt changed. The tension that had tightened her shoulders relaxed. She looked at Vexor and saw not just an alien commander, but a being curious and open. Behind his multifaceted eyes, she sensed hope for a new future. As they left the alcove together, Mara felt her heart lighter. She understood that cultural bridges required more than words. They required empathy and courage, and she felt ready for whatever came next. Knowing she carried both Earth's traditions and a growing bond with the Thenori people, Mara and Vexor sat at a small circular table in the ship's dining alcove. A soft blue light glowed above them, and the air smelled faintly of spiced algae broth. Mara cradled her bowl, feeling its warmth seep into her fingers. Across from her, Vexor studied the steam rising from his own meal with gentle curiosity. Ow. Neither spoke at first, only the quiet hum of the ship's engines filled the space. When Mara dared to taste her broth, she found it oddly comforting. She set down her spoon and smiled shyly at Vexer. On Earth, she began softly, we have soups like this when we are homesick. She lifted her eyes to meet his. They remind us of safety and family. Vexer's antennae quivered. As he listened, he tilted his head, indicating he wished to hear more. Mara told him about her childhood on a small farm near rolling hills. She described mornings when the sun painted the sky in pink and gold, and she ran barefoot through dukest grass. She spoke of her mother's gentle voice, calling her in for breakfast. With each word, her tone grew warmer. Vexer watched her face, and something like empathy shone in his dark eyes. He reached out, placing a hand on the table near hers, silence offering encouragement. Then Vexer shared his own story. He'd grown up among glass towers on Thanos Prime, a city of shimmering spires and endless stars. His mother taught him the ancient art of memory weaving, how mates would one day link their thoughts in a stream of shared recollections. He described the complex beauty of their rituals and soft clicks and measured pauses, his voice carrying pride and longing. Mara listened, imagining him as a young Thanori boy, curious and bright. In the glow of their meal, two strangers found common ground. Mara spoke of her sister's wedding day, white flowers, laughter, the steady hand of her father guiding her sister down the aisle. Vexer's antennae twitched in fascination, projected a tiny hologram of a Thanori binding ceremony above the table, two light crystals joined by threads of pure energy. Mara watched, her heart swelling at the idea that across galaxies, beings celebrated bonds with equal depth. As the last of their soup disappeared, Mara noticed tears glinting in Vexer's eyes. He caught her glance and nodded, acknowledging the emotion without shame. Mara felt tears of her own, as she realized how far they had come in understanding each other. She reached out, gently touching his hand. The moment was quiet but powerful, a silent vow of respect and friendship. When they finally rose from the table, Mara felt lighter than she had since waking on this alien ship. Vexer stood beside her, his usual reserve softened by their shared stories. As they walked back toward the command corridor, Mara glanced over at him and realized that, through simple words and honest memories, they had formed a bridge of understanding. In that bridge lay the promise of unity, one meal and two hearts at a time. Mara stood in a circular chamber lit by shifting green lights that pulsed like slow heartbeats. Around the rim of the floor, 7 carved symbols glowed faintly, icons of trust, honor, compassion, loyalty, wisdom, courage, and unity. Across from her, Commander Vexer watched with solemn stillness, his antennae gently swaying. 7 Thanori elite soldiers formed a ring between them, their dark armor reflecting the chamber's light. Mara's breath caught as she realized this was not a battle of weapons, but of mind and spirit. A quiet voice echoed in the chamber, translated into common tongue. Prove your understanding of our values. Solve the trials. Before Mara, the first symbol, the twin hands rose from the floor as a translucent puzzle. Pieces that floated in midair. The trial, assemble the symbol by guiding each fragment into place without speaking. Mara held her breath and watched as the pieces drifted apart. She remembered Vexer's stories of bonding through silent gestures, and extended her hand. He nodded almost imperceptibly and touched one shard. His touch glowed blue, and the shard moved toward Mara's cluster. Working in harmony, they guided each fragment home, and the symbol clicked into place. Faces softened into approving stillness. Without pause, the second symbol, the entwined spirals of thought rose. This trial was mental. Each competitor faced a hollow projection of a memory and had to correctly identify the hidden emotion. Vexer's memory played first. A cold dawn on Thanos' prime when he faced his first binding ceremony. Tears had welled in his eyes. Mara spoke, his emotion aloud. Anticipation mixed with fear. The memory shifted to show him at peace afterward. In comfort, she added. The hala faded, and her answer glowed green. Then it was her turn. A fleeting image of her sister's wedding day appeared. Laughter, flowers, and a tremor in Mara's chest. Vexer watched her closely, then spoke softly, joy and longing. The chamber lights brightened. Mara realized he had sensed her heart's pull toward home, Their unspoken empathy had solved the trial. Next came the third symbol, an unbroken circle, representing loyalty. 7 paths radiated outward from its center. 2 travelers must each choose a path without knowing the other's choice and still meet at the circle's heart. Mara studied the maze etched in light. Choice over decree. She stepped forward along the path marked by a small earth icona leaf. Vexor mirrored her move by selecting the path bearing Thenori's script for union. The chamber hummed as their paths curved inward, drawing closer until they converged at the circle's center. Mara and Vexor stood face to face, breathless, and the symbol glowed gold. With only 4 trials complete, Mara felt her heart pound not from fear, but from exhilaration. She had never felt so alive. The 4th symbol, a stylized flame, hovered before them. Its trial-tested courage. Face a holographic storm of doubts and emerge unbroken. The storm materialized as voices whispering fears. You are alone out. Here you cannot bridge this gap. Your bonds are fragile. Mara's pulse quickened. She closed her eyes and summoned her family's words. Be brave, but remember who you are. She imagined her sister's laughter, her mother's embrace, the warmth of earth under her feet. The storm's voices faltered, and Mara opened her eyes to see the flame pulse steadily. Vexor placed his hand on her shoulder in solidarity, and the flame brightened, approving their shared bravery. The final 3 trials came fast, a test of compassion requiring Mara to heal, a wounded holosoldier by offering words of comfort, a wisdom trial in which they solved a complex riddle about unity by combining Thenori philosophy with a human proverb, and a heart trial where they each revealed 1 fear and 1 hope. Mara admitted her fear of failing her mission and her hope. To unite 2 worlds, Vexor confessed fear of dishonoring his people and hope for a future where choice and tradition coexisted. Each revelation bound them closer. As the 7th symbol, 2 entwined light crystals shone at the chamber's heart, the circle of guards bowed their heads. The chamber lights faded to a soft glow, and Vexor turned to Mara, his multifaceted eyes warm. You've proven your understanding, he declared. His voice held pride and respect. Mara felt tears of relief and joy well in her eyes. She had faced 7 trials without a weapon and emerged not just as a soldier, but as a bridge between species. In that moment, Mara understood the true power of loyalty, empathy, and friendship values that could transcend any starless void. Commander Vexor led Mara down a narrow corridor lined with softly glowing panels. Each step echoed in the quiet as they approached a small chamber adorned with hanging strands of light. The air here felt warm and sacred, as if every molecule honored what was to come. Ra's heart thudded with anticipation. She remembered the lessons from the trial's trust, empathy, loyalty. Knew this ritual would bind more than just light crystals. It would bind understanding between human and Thenori. When they entered, 2 graceful figures stood waiting. They wore simple robes and held in their hands a pair of pale crystals, each about the size of Mara's fist, Vexor explained in his calm voice that these were union crystals, charged with living light. When mates clasped them together, their minds would share memories, hopes, and fears. The ceremony was private, meant only for true mates, but Vexor had invited Mara as an honored guest. She bowed her head, feeling both humbled and proud. The robed Thenori began a soft chant, their voices weaving into a gentle hum that filled the chamber. Light pulsed through the crystals in sync with each word. Vexor stepped forward first. He lifted his crystal and touched its smooth surface to his forehead. Mara watched as the light spilled across his antennae, tracing down his neck like a living ribbon, while tears glinted in his eyes. Tears of joy, she guessed. Then he lowered his crystal and held it out to her. Mara's hand shook as she took the crystal. It felt warm, almost like a heartbeat in her palm. She closed her eyes and pressed it to her own forehead. For a moment, she saw flashes of Vexor's memories, his first view of the Thanor homeworld, the taste of rain on alien soil, the pride of his peoples greatest victories. She breathed deeply, feeling his feelings as if they were her own. When the light faded, she opened her eyes to find Vexor smiling gently, his gaze soft and full of trust. Moved by the depth of his bond, Mara reached into her pack and drew out a small silver locket. It was her mother's gift, a simple heart. Etched on the front. "On Earth," she said softly, "we give tokens to show our promise." She opened the locket to reveal a tiny sketch of her family. Vexor leaned in, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the image. He closed his own crystal until it glowed faintly, then placed it beside the locket on a low altar between them. The two items glowed and intertwined, as if acknowledging their shared meaning. The robed Thenori closed the ceremony with a final chant. The crystals, now linked by a strand of living light, floated together above the altar before settling back into their holders. Vexor turned to Mara and bowed deeply, an honor rarely shown to outsiders. Mara returned the bow, her chest warm. With emotion, the silent exchange, they understood each other more fully than words could say. Choice and tradition. Human heart and Thenori mind woven into a single promise of friendship. As they left the chamber, Mara glanced at Vexor and felt hope grow in her chest. She realized that she had not only witnessed a sacred ritual, but had become part of it. The bond of trust between them would guide every step forward. With each echoing footstep down the corridor, Mara carried more than memory she carried, the weight and wonder of a new alliance that could reshape two worlds. A sudden alarm ripped through the ship's corridors as Mara and Vexor strode toward the command deck. A distress beacon from a Thenori scout vessel shone red on the holomap, blinking urgently near a derelict moon. Moments later, the soft hum of engines changed as the flagship altered course. Mara's heart pounded not with fear, but with resolve to help those in need, just as Vexor had shown her kindness. When they arrived, they saw the scout's hull torn and blackened, its crew stranded in life pods drifting toward a field of hostile pirate cutters. Pirate ships, jagged and grim, circled like sharks. Vexor's antennae bristled with anger, but Mara placed a calming hand on his arm. "We can still talk," she whispered. She remembered the lessons of trust and empathy, and she knew that compassion could disarm even the fiercest foes. Drawing on her Earth's diplomacy training, Mara requested a hololink to the pirate captain. On the viewer, the pirate's scarred face appeared, his one remaining eye narrowing as he assessed the two strangers. Vexor's posture stiffened, but Mara spoke first, her voice steady and warm. "We come in peace. Your people's lives are in danger." She explained how the scout crew were non-combatants and promised safe passage if the pirates allowed a rescue. The pirate captain scoffed, threatened to vaporize the life pods, and demanded a hefty ransom. Vexor's claws flexed in anger. He wanted to unleash the fleet's weapons. Yet Mara placed a hand on his shoulder again. A silent plea for restraint. She pivoted to the camera and spoke earnestly to the pirate captain. "On Earth, we value helping those in need. It shows who we are." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Your men were once scouts, like those we save now. Do you not once held someone's life in your hands?" The pirate's eye flickered. Mara saw the faintest hint of doubt. She'd impressed her locket, still warm in her coat pocket. "Against the holotransmitter, as a token of promise. We will reward you fairly and share the knowledge of our cultures if you spare these lives." The bridge fell into tense silence. Vexor watched Mara's courage unfold, pride and admiration shining in his gaze. The pirate captain's lips twitched into something resembling a grin. He leaned forward and tapped his console. "I respect honesty," he growled, his voice rough like gravel. "Fine, I will let you pass. But do not cross me again." Mara nodded, relief flooding her chest. In that moment, she felt the power of simple truth and the bond she shared with Vexor guiding her words. As rescue shuttles lowered, the life pods drifted into safe range. Mara and Vexor worked side by side, coordinating the Thenori medics with thoughtful precision. Whenever a pod opened, Mara offered comforting words to rattled crew members, her tone gentle and steady. Vexer observed from the doorway, his usual reserve softened by respect for her empathy. When the last pod docked, wounded but alive, a roar of gratitude echoed through the hangar. Vexer placed a hand on Mara's shoulder, and she felt his silent thank you as deeply as any words. Later on the command deck, Mara watched the stars blur past as the ship resumed its mission. Vexer stood beside her, antennae relaxed and eyes reflecting starlight. He asked quietly, "Human, how did you find such courage?" Mara smiled, recalling the trials they conquered and the rituals they shared. "I learned from you," she replied. "You taught me that honor comes from the heart." Vexer inclined his head, a gesture of profound respect. In that moment, Mara understood that compassion and courage together could change minds and save lives. And as the flagship sailed on toward new horizons, she felt hope bloom in her chest for the future they would forge, one grounded in empathy, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond of chosen mates. Mara stood at the panoramic viewport on the command deck, watching the pale light of a distant star wash over the Thanori fleet. The bridge hummed with renewed energy as crews prepared for the next mission, but Mara felt a quiet stillness in her chest. Vexer joined her, his tall form outlined by the starlight. He spoke softly, his voice carrying a warmth she had come to trust. "Human, you have shown honor, empathy, and courage beyond any expectation. You have become more than my guest." Mara turned to him, her breath steady. She remembered every trial, every shared memory, every moment of silent understanding. She thought of her sister's laughter, the taste of algae broth, the glow of the Union crystals. Her heart swelled with gratitude for this commander who had taught her that true bonds are woven from trust and choice. She gave him a small, honest smile. Vexer inclined his head, antennae quivering with emotion. He extended his hand, but instead of offering a crystal this time, he spoke the words that Mara had never imagined an alien might say so gently. "Will you be my mate?" The question felt like a promise and an invitation, all at once. Mara's eyes filled with tears, tears of joy, relief, and hope. She placed her hand in his, feeling the familiar warmth of trust. Wow. On Earth, marriage was a vow before friends and family. Among the Thanori, being a mate meant sharing heart and mind forever. In that moment, Mara realized that she stood on the threshold of two worlds. She thought of her sister waiting on Earth, her mother's proud smile, and the lives of every scout saved by their alliance. And she thought of Vexer, whose kindness had opened her heart to a new future. "I accept," Mara said, her voice steady and clear. "I choose to stand by you." Her words echoed softly in the bridge. Vexer's multifaceted eyes glowed with living light as he lifted a new pair of Union crystals. He pressed one to his forehead and offered the other to Mara. She closed her eyes and touched it to her skin. Feeling the shimmer of memories and hope flood her mind, she saw images of peace talks, shared celebrations, and a galaxy united. When she opened her eyes, she found Vexer smiling. Around them, the bridge crew watched with respectful silence, humans and Thanori alike, witnessing the birth of a bond that could unite their peoples. Mara felt a swell of pride and purpose. She knew that their alliance would be tested by politics and distance, but she no longer felt alone. She had a partner who understood her heart. As the stars streaked past, Mara and Vexer stood side by side, their crystals glowing in harmony. Their bond was not born from duty alone, but from choice and compassion. It would guide every mission, every negotiation, every hope for peace. And in that quiet moment on the command deck, Mara Emery felt that she was exactly where she was meant. To be a human who had found a mate among the stars, ready to lead both her own people and the Thanori into a new era of understanding and friendship.